Good evening and thanks for joining us. We're continuing to cover the two biggest stories in this country, the pandemic and a mass murder. We begin in Nova Scotia. The RCMP there have given more information about their response to the worst mass killing in Canadian history. At least 22 people were murdered. We know that for almost 14 hours, starting late Saturday night, a gunman disguised as an RCMP officer was roaming a remote part of rural Nova Scotia, killing people he knew and shooting others apparently at random. The RCMP now say when they arrived on the scene, they found victims, but the gunman was on the loose. They began to search. Yet the only alert to the public that night was a tweet about a firearms complaint. No emergency alert was ever issued, something many say could have saved lives. By morning, the RCMP began tweeting again.
At 8:02 a.m. on Sunday, the RCMP began providing real-time information on its Nova Scotia RCMP Twitter account. Twitter allowed our information to be shared, followed, and broadcast by local, provincial, and national news outlets. At 10:15 a.m., Nova Scotia Provincial Emergency Management officials contacted the RCMP to offer the use of the public emergency alerting system. We were in the process of preparing an alert when the gunman was shot and killed by the RCMP.
The RCMP described the situation that night and into the morning as fluid and dynamic. They say they know the public and the loved ones of victims have plenty of questions. Ross Lord has our top story tonight.
RCMP investigators are still combing through scattered devastation at 16 crime scenes, with the military providing tents and other support. Little has been said officially about the victims at this burnt-out home, but the location on a remote road in Wentworth, Nova Scotia, suggests it was a targeted attack. The Mounties are short on answers to this and other questions about the rampage.
We have those same questions, and we'll be seeking answers.
There are new clues about the chaotic effort to stop him. Investigators said today they spent the overnight hours between Saturday and Sunday focused on a specific area. This fire hall has bullet holes from gunfire Sunday morning. The hall was being prepared as a shelter for residents moved to safety from Portapic. Witnesses say RCMP officers were there, but the Serious Incident Response Team, which is investigating, says the gunman was not, raising questions about who officers were firing at. Investigators say the suspect did not have a firearms license, and they have not yet said what type of guns or other weapons were used. Some victims' families and friends say if the Mounties had initiated an emergency alert instead of using Twitter messages, fewer lives would be lost.
Not everyone has Twitter or even Facebook or even internet, but we all have a television or a telephone.
Some people did receive an alert. The U.S. consulate says it used the RCMP's Twitter information to send email alerts to American citizens in Nova Scotia. Premier Stephen McNeil says his emergency officials reached out to the Mounties.
We would not go from what's happening by Twitter. We would need the lead agency to actually craft the message so that we could put that out, and no message was received, even though EMO had reached out a number of times throughout the morning to the RCMP.
Troubling new questions.
Were there mistakes made by incident commander or someone else, or was it a matter of we need to change procedure on how we respond to these types of calls when we have a gun call, maybe in rural areas?
RCMP management says they were in the process of preparing an alert when the gunman was killed. That was 13 hours after the Mounties discovered the first victims and identified their suspect.
So a lot of the delay was based on communications between the EMO and the various officers, and then a discussion about what the message would be, how it would be constructed and what it would say.
The gunman had vehicles restored in the garage behind his denture clinic. Scott Blakeney spruced up the shooter's motorbikes 5 years ago. He took this picture in the garage, which has the same background as the notorious image RCMP released of the mock-up police car used during the rampage.
I would say the vehicle was parked exactly where those bikes were parked the time I was detailing them. So when I looked at it, I was like, that's him.
Police have removed the clinic's storefront, 2 sets of gigantic teeth. Small consolation. The Mounties do say they're very close to releasing a detailed timeline of the shooter's movements, although they're still piecing together some gaps, including revealing how many officers were at these various scenes as they tried to track down the killer. Donna?
All right, Ross Lord in Halifax, thanks. The people of Enfield, Nova Scotia and nearby communities held a memorial today to honor the RCMP officer killed in the line of duty. A parade of vehicles made its way to the local RCMP detachment. It's less than a kilometre down the road from where the shooting spree came to an end. Enfield was the home detachment of Constable Heidi Stevenson. She was a 23-year veteran of the force. She was one of many victims. Global News has now confirmed the identities of 18 of the 22 people killed. They include a beloved teacher, healthcare workers, and a retired firefighter who rushed into action to help his neighbors. Loving couples and a family of 3 also had their lives cut short. Our Mike Drolet has been learning more about each of their stories from their friends and loved ones.
The Tuck Oliver family had thought the darkness had finally passed them by. Both of Aaron Tuck's parents recently died, and he, his wife Jolene, and daughter Emily had once again found laughter. Videos of the family are all that's kept Jolene's sister Tammy going.
I'm not ready to go back through Emily's yet, because she was taken so early, but I just wanted to hear all their voices. You know, like, I'm just scouring to hold on to memories.
Emily is the youngest victim in this tragedy, a 17-year-old girl who liked fixing engines and had recently found her calling to be an apprentice welder.
She grew into a person where, like, she was so super cool. I so super miss her.
They were as tight a family as you could imagine, separated by 3 time zones, yet connected through technology. But in death, a mother needs more.
And then my mom last night, one thing that she said, she wants to hold her hand one last time.
Tammy is struggling to make that happen. And as we learn more about the victims, it seems like so many of them would have offered to help. Men like retired Navy veteran and firefighter Tom Bagley, who died running towards one of the houses set on fire. Turning away, his friends say, simply wasn't in his character.
He's one of those guys that they broke the mold when he was born, and he'll always be in my heart and the heart of a lot of people.
We've heard that a lot. These Nova Scotians who died so tragically were good. The Blairs, Greg and Jamie, were known for their laughter and warmth. If you were at their home, you stayed for dinner. And you can believe Greg's 46th birthday this week would have been a blast, even during times of physical distancing.
Partied, drank. It would have been a good day. It would have been. We're going to celebrate still, which that's what he'd want.
So many sad stories about happy people. The least we can do is celebrate them for who they were. Mike Drolet, Global News.